Coming up, a Seminole artist tells us about her work, and American Rivers releases its list of endangered waterways. Plus, our At the Crossroads special report finds leaders of the Osage Nation are working well with city and county officials. I'm Mark Trahant, filling in for Leah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is a proud supporter of Indian Country Today. Students at Cronkite News and Gaylord College at the University of Oklahoma cover Indigenous communities together. This important work is distributed by more than 100 news organizations. This collaboration provides a much-needed boost to coverage of Native American communities nationwide. Learn more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Leah Chavez.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Trahant. Aaliyah Chavez is away. The Office of Hawaiian Affairs is announcing $14.9 million in grant solicitations to support Native Hawaiians. This funding comes in the form of community grants and will target the strengthening of family, culture, and land connections. These grants will also increase support for education, health, housing, and economic stability. This is all part of the agency's 15-year strategic plan to support Hawaii-based nonprofit organizations that align with its outcomes. The Office of Hawaiian Affairs currently receives $15 million a year in public land trust revenue. This money goes directly to fund beneficiary and community investments, including grants and legal services. Carmen Lindsay is the board chair for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Lindsay says its overall two-year fiscal biennium budget for the grants, including scholarships, is set at $30.2 million, a new record. The office's land grant program has doubled its available budget to support sponsorship of community events. In order to accommodate community needs, grant applications will now be reviewed quarterly instead of every 6 months. On April 26, the OHA will host an online session for general questions and assistance regarding the application process. A Native Hawaiian congressman is defending himself after coming under scrutiny last week. The news organization Honolulu Civil Beat found the U.S. Representative Kai Kahele has not voted in person since January. Instead, he voted by proxy 120 times. This is when a member of Congress delegates his or her voting power to another representative. The report also found Kahele has continued to work as an airline pilot for Hawaiian Airlines. This raised questions about a possible conflict of interest because the lawmaker sits on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Kahele's office responded to the criticism last week. He limited his cross-country travel because he lives in a multi-generational home, a spokesman told CNN, and his office also defended his job as a pilot, saying it offers a unique perspective because he is, quote, a voice for all pilots in Congress. Tomorrow, the Decolonizing Wealth Project will be hosting its first annual Indigenous Earth Summit. The virtual celebration ahead of Earth Day will be an evening of conversations and performances. One of the topics of discussion for the April 20th event will center on the power of Indigenous culture in climate change. People will have a unique opportunity to hear directly from Native activists and policy leaders about the future of climate and conversation. This year's participants include actors and Indigenous rights advocates Kwana Chasinghorse and Dallas Goldtooth. And Charlie Lowry, Tony Duncan, and Alex Rihanna are all scheduled to perform. White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council member Jade Begay is also slated to join. Begay will be moderating a panel around federal policies that are critical to Indigenous communities. Founders of the Decolonizing Wealth Project, Edgar Villanueva, spoke to ICT about the common thread shared by this year's participants.
What's really important and what we're trying to represent in that is that all of us, no matter what role we play in our communities, from being an activist to working in universities or research or, even working in fashion and entertainment, we all have an opportunity to use our voices to influence culture and to shift mindsets that folks have about the planet, and to use our platforms to lift up the importance of centering Indigenous people in our leadership.
Registration for the virtual event is free and open to the public. Visit the website for more information on how you can attend. Women are making history in Washington State. 5 women are serving on the Tulalip Tribe's Board of Directors. It is the first time this has ever happened. Deborah Posey was elected in March as the latest woman to lead the board. Her grandmother was the late Edith Parsival Parks. Parks was the first woman to serve on the Board of Directors in the 1930s. More than 1,200 citizens participated in the election, and 52% of those voters are women. Posey told the Daily Herald that strong women have always led tribes, though not always in elected roles. One final game. That was the scene last week as Lauren Schad completed her last volleyball game. She announced in an Instagram post that she is retiring. The Lakota citizen played 5 seasons as a professional volleyball player in France. Before that, she played collegiately at the University of San Diego. Schad thanked her support system, including her family and loved ones, signing off saying she will begin her long overdue rest. And those are the headlines for the IC2 Newscast. Coming up, jobs and CARES Act funding on the Osage Nation. Our series, At the Crossroad, takes us to Wahuska, Oklahoma, and the Colorado River is one of the nation's most endangered rivers. But first, meet a Seminole artist whose paintings mirror her Seminole and Winnebago heritage. The Florida State University Division of Student Affairs has selected a member of the Seminole Tribe of Florida to create artwork that will be prominently displayed in the new FSU Student Union. Later this summer, an acrylic painting by accomplished artist and Seminole Tribe of Florida citizen Erica Dietz will be reproduced to adorn a highly visible 24-foot high by 16-foot wide area in the Student Union. Erica M. Dietz was born on the Winnebago Indian Reservation in Nebraska. She's an enrolled citizen of the Seminole Tribe of Florida. She belongs to the Panther Clan through her mother's side and has a Winnebago and Ojibwe heritage on her father's side. Welcome, Erica.
Hi, great to be here.
So I understand art is kind of a family affair. Maybe talk about that.
It is. My grandmother on my mom's side, she was a seamstress. She made patchwork like what I'm wearing right now. And my mother, she's an artist, and she met my dad at the Santa Fe Indian Art Institute in New Mexico.
Your mother's a well-known artist. Maybe talk about her influence on your work.
Well, growing up, she would always give me a pad, pencil, markers, and she was constantly creating pen and ink artwork or acrylic paintings, watercolor. So I had the pleasure and the blessing of being able to be around her while she was doing that.
What kind of things did you take away now in your career from that experience?
Patience and just the fortitude to keep believing in yourself and to keep creating and to enjoy the process of creating.
When you think of a 24-foot mural, or art piece, that's extraordinary. What's the process for something that large? What goes through both your mind and the craft aspect?
My takeaway from it was I wanted to show our heritage through the eyes of a tribal member. And so I think that was the main purpose of me creating this painting. And everything else, because it's going to be scanned and then replicated on a huge vinyl piece, which will fit that large area. So I think when it all comes together, it probably hit me, but right now it hasn't really hit me how significant it is. So I'm pretty excited, but I think I'll probably be fully take in the whole thing once I see it in person. Because as an artist, you're just totally focus on creating the piece.
So how do you create this piece? I mean, I'm intrigued by the process.
Well, with me, I did an acrylic, so I just prepped the canvas, and then it's hard to explain, but I guess if you were to, for me, it's almost like having a dream, but in a wakened state, because just putting the images together, I think that's probably the favorite part of the process for me, because I just kind of just take that, and it just becomes more of I would say like a vision, and then just putting it together on canvas. So sometimes I have to be careful, because I kind of have the idea completed in my mind, but sometimes the canvas will still be blank. So, so I mean, I'm sure that's a lot of other artists will understand that.
Oh, it's funny. I've over the years heard that a lot from artists, where I know exactly what I'm seeing and I just have to get it there. Sculptors are saying, I look at a rock and I see a finished piece. How does that work for the rest of us? I mean,
growing up, I was fortunate to see my mom do that, and just to see how she worked through her process. So I feel like I've probably picked up her, habits, and then also her, how she would lay things out. And she was very meticulous and very, she was really, her own worst critic. And I do that to myself too. So you just want it just perfect. So, but again, that is all part of the process, being an artist. And I think that's, I enjoy all of it.
We only have about a minute left, and I want to ask you what message you have for young people who want to do art. I mean, especially at a college campus.
Oh, never give up. Always surround yourself with positive people. I'm fortunate to have that in my family and my loved ones.
Well, I look forward to seeing the piece. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
The Colorado River is ground zero for the climate crisis as water levels plummet, threatening the lifeblood of 30 federally recognized tribes, 7 states, and Mexico. AmericanRivers.org lists 10 rivers that are endangered. Joining us is Daryl Vihil. He's the water administrator for the Jicarilla Apache Nation and serves on the board of trustees for the Colorado River Water Users Association. Welcome, Daryl.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So being number one in this case is not a good thing. Tell us what that designation means.
Yeah, I'm was very honored to work with American Rivers and putting together some video and some communications to the broader, hopefully, world in terms of what's going on with the Colorado River. And as you mentioned, it provides water to 41 million people, 7 basin states, 2 countries, and particularly 30 tribal sovereigns who've been in the basin for millenniums, and finally starting to get the recognition that tribes have been trying to tell the greater basin for a long time in terms of the extreme nature and the urgency of protecting the river in terms of what we've been noticing with climate change and hydrology, and now the aridification of the Southwest.
With so much of climate change, it's been a story about something that's going to happen sometime in the future. This is now. How do we get people interested in how we need to make really dramatic changes quickly?
Yeah, I think we're seeing, that the current structure of governance that manages the law of the Colorado River is at collapse and has been at collapse for a while in terms of water allocation. And if we don't take the extreme measures in transforming the complete system and include tribal sovereigns as a part of that process, we're going to be in a real dangerous place in terms of the potential for not being able to deliver water to folks, and then also the inability to, or the ability that people are going to exercise in terms of litigation. And if it goes to litigation, the basin is sunk because, we'll be years while the river dies.
If you, I had two images that really come to mind for me is if you drive along anywhere almost along the Colorado River, but especially around Lake Powell, and you see just deeper and deeper and deeper marks showing how far away the river is from the norm. And then you see development going on and new construction and new requirements for water. How do we balance those two things?
Mark, all incredibly great questions. And exactly what we're dealing with right now in the basin in terms of people see that on TV, some of those bathtub rings in Lake Powell. And the reality is that we're probably going to get to power pool. And Western Area Power Association at Glen Canyon and the power that it produces provides power to most of the Southwest, including 30 tribal sovereigns. And so if we don't start thinking about how we're going to manage with less of a resource, which is a reality. And that's part of the problem that has been, Mark, is that we're still trying to operate under old structures and old water law policy that's been in place for 100 years. And this year is the anniversary of the Colorado River Compact. And at the heart of that particular law of the river, it says that it doesn't apply to tribes. And right now, with tribes owning 25% or so interest in terms of water rights in the Colorado River Basin, and in 2022, there's no place for tribes to engage in the policy-making process at all. There's no structural place for that to happen. And with that amount of water rights, for us to be part of the solution, and that's absolutely the spirit that tribes bring to this, is this spirit of sharing and sharing not only with the human element, but with all with nature and the ecosystems that we're talking about too.
As the water declines, and because tribes are such large property owners of water, does that give them a new entry into saying, we need some policy decisions made and we're insisting?
Absolutely it is. And we've had to build that from the ground up because the 2007 operational guidelines for the Colorado River excluded tribes, so did the basin study. So there's been this trend of exclusion. And so we're really, understand that that's the structure that's available to us that we didn't have any real input in developing, but we absolutely understand. And it's our commitment. And like the 10 Tribes Partnership vision statement talks about leading from a spiritual mandate. And that's absolutely where tribes are coming from today in terms of how do we solve this problem with the realities of hydrology? But we need to be able to, in order for tribes to be able to participate, there needs to be a place for them to do that. There needs to be a recognition of tribal sovereignty and self-determination. And we really saw, Mark, during COVID, what that meant. Where if a tribe wasn't able to be self-determined in their allocation of their resources, including water resources, potable water resources, people died. And so that's the level of urgency and importance that, in terms of how tribes think of this.
Do you think the rude awakening will come when there are power outages, or do you think people are already engaged?
I hope it doesn't come to that point where where the structures actually start to fail. I mean, hopefully we have enough resources when we're talking about resources, the mental resources and the human desire resources to really do something transformative that needs to happen. And a lot of the conversations that are happening in the tribal world are about we've been living here thousands of years adaptively and sustainably. And how do we do that? It's by in our DNA in terms of who we are as a people, in terms of operating from a complete place of humility and understanding that we're just a part of a greater whole. And when you bring that type of mindset to it, I think there's a whole lot a better pathway in terms of solution making.
This is extraordinary. Thank you so much, Daryl.
Sure. Thank you, Mark.
We continue our At the Crossroads special report. Shannon Shaw Duty is the editor of the Osage News. Her recent story is called Working Together, Tribal Partnerships Bring Regional Jobs. And she joins us now to break down her reporting. Shannon, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. So let's jump right in. How is the Osage Nation creating new partnerships that benefit everybody with jobs?
Well, we do have 7 casinos within our reservation, which is also contiguous with Osage County. We are partnering with the county and the cities that are within our reservation and doing jobs for roads, improvements, bridges, construction. They're thinking outside the box for broadband internet and other multiple projects.
When I was reading your story, I was thinking about 3 kind of main characters. Tribal leaders, Osage Principal Chief Jeffrey Standing Bear, Osage County Commissioner Randall Jones, and Pawhuska City Manager Jerry Eubanks. Maybe talk about their work and how they work together on some of these issues.
Well, in doing this reporting, I learned a great deal about how all 3 entities often have to work together. And for a long time, they had trouble doing that. There was a lot of contentious issues about jurisdiction. But with these 3 leaders that are in now, they are trying to partner so everyone benefits for all. So there's a lot of intergovernmental agreements, a lot of MOUs with each other, a lot of cross-jurisdictional partnerships so that everybody can be helped.
I want to learn more about tourism in Osage area.
Yes, that is going to be a big booming business after the upcoming film Killers of the Flower Moon comes out. So we've already seen an influx of tourism when the film was here on site and when they were doing production. And so the film crew is coming back mid-May. And so we're going to see that influx of people again. And then after the film comes out, there'll be that influx. But right now, our Osage tribal leaders and the employees that work with tourism and with our visitor center, et cetera, are trying to find ways to, make the most of everyone coming to our reservation and letting our story be told through our eyes, and just trying to capitalize on all of that for the betterment of the community.
So much of tourism is location-based, and with a film, people want to know, where was that spot? Will there be places like that where there'll be a story connected to it?
I think so. Right now, a big portion of the film is based in Fairfax, which is one of our smaller reservation towns. And they are busily trying to create a memorial, a museum. There's tours that are going on. And I think that Osage entrepreneurs are getting more involved as time goes on. The tribe has kind of taken a step back a little bit from that, but we are seeing a lot of small business owners that are Osage taking advantage of this opportunity, opening up stores, tourist places, etc.
I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you about the CARES Act funding and other coronavirus incentives. How has the tribe used those revenue sources?
Well, they built in record speed a butcher house meat processing facility using our Osage Nation ranch bison and cattle. They also, in record time, made a harvest land farm / heritage trail. It's been very successful for our community as one of my favorite places to go with my kids. There's playgrounds, there's Frisbee or disc golf coming. It's just been a really nice thing that this CARES Act money has done for our community in terms of opening up new businesses and outside places for us to go and be healthy.
I understand more of that's coming with the sports complex planning.
Yes, right now, Chief Jeffrey Standing Bear, one of his initiatives is the sports complex, and the city and county leaders agree that this is something that our area needs. The only thing that we need is the funding. And right now they're putting their heads together on how to make that happen.
You mentioned your kids earlier on, and I want to ask you, with this opportunity for creating jobs, does it make it more like a place where people, so many of our communities, young people get educated and go away. Is this more likely for people to get educated and stay?
This is one of the main reasons why they are doing all of these projects, because that is something that we have been hurting from for decades, is that our Osages get educated and they move on and they don't come home. And right now our tribal population is shrinking here at home. So with these new initiatives, that was one of the goals that our tribal leaders always express, is that we want to create jobs and infrastructure so that our educated Osages can come home.
One of the things I liked about this project was how it took a regional lens to a national story and allowed different people to tell their version of it. How did it work for you in that sense, seeing kind of the country and then tying it into Osage?
I really enjoyed it. This was a really fun project for me. The Osage News, this is the first time that we've ever participated in this type of collaboration, and I hope there are many more. It really provided a lot of data and input for our readers as well, and publishing the other stories that were produced in the collaboration. Our readers enjoyed those as well, and I think that Indian Country Today, if they do similar projects like this in the future, I think it's very beneficial to include the tribal newsrooms as well.
Shannon Shaw Duty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For more news, visit IndianCountryToday.com. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives. I'm Mark Trahant.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.